But right now, let's talk about airline ticket prices. You know, if you've tracked a particular flight, you probably noticed the price can change over time. So for more on exactly just what goes into those flight pricing, we have Eric Tanner with us this afternoon. He is the Chief Commercial Officer of Flair Airlines. Hi there, and good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming in. Eric, maybe we should start with just what kinds of factors are considered when the prices are set in the first place?
So many factors. Where to begin? The first thing that we always are looking at is demand for a particular market on a particular day. We look at historical data, we look at past booking trends, and then we're also looking at what the capacity is in the market. Now, there are several airlines in Canada, and oftentimes you have more than one option when you're looking at purchasing an airline ticket. And so what we're also looking at is what are our competitors doing? For a certain length of flight, what is the fare gap that we should be having to a competitor? Because we pride ourselves at Flair at offering the lowest possible fares in the market. So all of those are going into deciding how we start selling a market. And then what goes on as we get closer and closer to departure is what we're looking at is our expected load factor build. So by that, I mean, we expect a certain number of days out to departure to be filled to, say, 30%, 40%, 50%. If we're ahead of that, usually the price goes up because that means that the demand is greater than the supply, sort of economics 101. If we're below that target, the price goes down to try to stimulate more demand to bring the prices up. That's the basics of it. But of course, those things can change with special events. They can change with holidays, school vacations, all of those types of things. And so we have a whole team as well as systems that are managing every single flight that we have every single day for over a year. We're currently selling our schedule through next September. And every single one of those flights has a particular price point based on what we expect to see on that flight.
Well, there's so much that you can't predict, though, isn't there? You're just talking about you still have to be flexible. If you're going to have, for example, COVID come into the picture and all of the airlines shut down, or you have major storms, or all those kinds of things are also factors that you have to be willing to change.
100%. I mean, COVID was this massive event for all the airlines, but I'll give you a more recent example of even just this past weekend when the smoke from the surrounding fires, we had it here in Vancouver. It was also in Alberta, and what we actually saw was demand for travel between British Columbia and Alberta actually went down. And if you think about it, those are the shortest flights that we have, coming into Vancouver. It's people who are saying, hey, there's an affordable fare. I'm going to go visit my friend in Richmond this weekend, or I'm going to go to Banff and go for a hike this weekend with some friends. They weren't doing that because the forecast wasn't looking the way that they wanted it to look. They didn't want to go out and go for a trip. And so those are the things where you're always sort of gambling with the expected demand that you're going to see. And if it doesn't materialize, you may end up having more affordable fares than you expect. And potentially emptier planes than we expect.
Oh, it's interesting. Okay, well, you've explained sort of the supply and demand closer to the date. How full is the plane? What are our competitors doing? Can we increase the price? So I get why prices might increase or decrease now. But are there instances, and I've certainly experienced instances, where I've seen different prices for the same flight, depending on where I'm searching?
Where you're searching? Potentially. So there's, for us here at Flair, our lowest fares are always at flyflair.com. We want to make sure that people come and book direct. I can't speak for other airlines, but we certainly see slightly higher prices when you book through a third-party travel agency or something like that, because there's certain elements to it that actually add cost to the airline. So, for example, there's commission payments on that booking coming in. There's also more complexity. So when a flight is delayed or something like that, if you book direct, we can communicate directly to you. But if you book through a third party, we can't. And that actually adds complexity for us. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see slightly different pricing on different marketplaces. But for us, we always want to ensure that flyflair.com has the most affordable price.
Okay, and what kind of data does Flair have about the customers who visit your website?
Minimal until a booking is completed. So, we have our website analytics, et cetera, but we're not, necessarily tracking the types of customers who say are coming to our website and not booking. We can see, which country people are coming from or which province, but it doesn't really mean anything to us until we see that person on board and we have that person booking with us.
And does Flair ever use that kind of customer data from people who have flown with you before? Do you use that when you set your prices? Hey, here's someone who's paid this much for this flight in the past. They'd be likely willing to pay that again.
I'll make a self-deprecating joke. We are simply not technologically savvy enough to be able to offer a different price to a particular customer on our website. So the price that you see on our website is the price at that moment that's being offered to everybody.
So when I say, customers or consumers have expressed sort of concerns or fears that as technology becomes more advanced, you don't really have to be an expert to be collecting information. But if the information is available to you, then maybe there would be more sophisticated pricing that could use information like your browser history or your online history, that kind of thing.
I think that that's certainly a risk that we can talk about. We at Flair do not do that and don't have the current tech capability to even think about it. But no, if you look at it, when I use, say, points with other carriers to book a redemption, they force me now to log in before I can see the points flights. That's a new change. And I think part of it is to make it so that they know exactly who's coming in, how many points that person has, what their search history has been, because that's a frequent flyer. And so I do think it's a risk. And I think that there's certainly conversations to be had about how we manage that in the industry. But that's something that I'm very proud that we don't do, because I don't really think it's the right thing to do for customers.
I see. What about people who decide, I'm just going to go incognito? You get your incognito search
Your
button.
price on flyflair.com is going to be exactly the same. So choose whatever mode you want to be in on your browser. It's going to be the same low price.
Right. Okay. Well, with Flair Airlines, for example, depending on the add-ons that you choose, there are some cases where you can change your flight without penalty, depending on what class of ticket you've booked, right?
Yes.
So if you decide to change your flight, you just pay the difference in the airfare from when you booked and from where it sits at that particular day. So if you're in that scenario, maybe the price has gone up and you have to pay an extra $100 or that type of thing. What if it goes down from what you described? Sometimes closer to the date, the plane isn't full, you're trying to attract more people and the price goes down. Would you get a credit for that difference?
Well, now you're testing me on my knowledge of my own tariff and rules and regulations, but I believe so. Yes, you get a future travel credit with Flair for future travel.
You're on the record now.
If it's not the case, then I'll have to change it tomorrow.
You're on the record. So another factor in the price are the add-ons, of course. And a lot of people, that can really get the checked baggage, not always included, depending on which fare you choose. Sometimes carry-on not included either in certain airlines. How much of your business model, I guess, depends on, maybe not the base fare, but the add-ons?
For us, honestly, quite a bit. We want to stimulate new demand for travel by offering a very low base fare. And then we believe that you can add on whatever you need, right? There are airlines that will serve pretzels on board. I don't want a pretzel. I'm already thirsty when I'm on a plane. I don't need to become more thirsty. But the price of that pretzel is baked into your fare if you haven't paid for it extra. We believe that you should just pay for what you want to pay for. So it is a big part, but it's also a big part because that, for better or for worse, is just how human psychology goes into purchasing an airline ticket. People are very inspired by a low base fare to get them onto the trip. And until that changes, which I don't really think it's ever going to, I think you're going to continue to see airlines, across the spectrum, whether they're a full service global carrier or a more value style carrier, are still going to continue to unbundle. And that's what you've seen. Air Canada is the global carrier of Canada, and they have a basic economy product where they don't even allow you to bring a carry-on bag, and you have to pay to buy up to that. So I think that's going to be kind of with us for the long term.
It just seems to me there's been a bit of a backlash against the carry-on, the carry-on charges. Are you sensing that?
I think there's more of a backlash between in carry-on enforcement, and that's something that we've taken to heart at Flair, and it's something that we're actually looking to make some changes on our side. So,
what does that mean? A little bit more.
I'm going to say
more
watch this space. Actually, something that I think customers will like.
You're just going to leave us hanging?
I think they will like it more than. It is part of our effort to continue to improve the Flair customer experience, as opposed to using some sort of corporate spin to evolve in a negative way. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your coming in. Thank you.
I'll see you when we make those announcements. I'm sure we'll end this conversation then. But thanks for having me.
That's Eric Tanner, the Chief Commercial Officer of Flair Airlines. If you want to weigh in on your travel experience, it doesn't have to be with Flair, just generally where we're at with carry-ons, paying for carry-ons, not paying for them. Can you carry a handbag? Just those kinds of rules and restrictions, whatever, your whole experience and the pricing as well. You're welcome to comment on the coast at cbc.ca. On the coast at cbc.ca.